Joining me on the FloBowling podcast is Norm Duke. Norm has 38 PBA titles. Of those 38 titles, 7 are majors. Norm, it's Tim Berg here. Thank you for joining me today.
Tim, it's great to be here.
All right, Norm, let's get right into it here. A couple very busy months regarding news in the PBA. So let's begin with Fox Sports taking over the television rights starting in 2019 from ESPN. Fox Sports, Fox Sports 1, you're going to see all the TV events. And then also the big news that came out not too long ago regarding FloBowling and Flo Sports hopping into the picture regarding Extra Frame and taking over the streaming rights. So it seems like this would be a great time to be someone out there on the PBA 50 Tour and PBA Tour.
Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting month. I know that the PBA was really busy with announcements at the Bowl Expo, which we just returned from. And, man, I tell you what, you look at it two different ways. Number one, we just lost an ESPN partner that has been with us for so very long that part of us go, oh, my gosh. But then it is change. And if you're not willing to change, then you're going to be left behind eventually. And so they did so. We've got a lot more televised events. We have a lot more content going to the social media platforms. In fact, all of them are included with the Flo Sports, FloBowling deal. It's going to be, a groundbreaking next 4 years, I think, in which we have reached the bottom of that yield curve, so to speak, where we've been suffering. And I think that for the next 25, 30 years, we're going to see really a lot of advancements with the ability to watch bowling, and a lot of people get into it because they can watch it. And so we're so excited about the things that the PBA has done here recently to make, our tours better, all of them.
Norm, what still drives you when it comes to bowling week in, week out on the PBA and PBA 50 Tour?
Well, I've always done it for a living, and so it's still my living. So no matter what, I have to evaluate at the end of the year, hey, look, how's my living going to change? Is it going to change? Am I getting better or worse? And, 4 years ago, I got a whole new tour that I could participate in. So as long as I'm excited about bowling, then I have plenty of work in front of me. I mean, I bowl the regular tour almost in its entirety, the senior tour, roughly about 2/3 of it minimum. And then I'm Dallas Strikers player manager, so I'm very busy with that. There's just so much that I can do that the main thing is to not fry out and tire out and get burnt. You have to manage that. And sometimes when you're out there on the senior tour, and we bowl a lot out there, we bowl more on the senior tour, it seems like games-wise, than we do in the kids tour. And if you're not careful, if you bowl too many of them, you find yourself just burnt and, ready for a break right when the kid tour starts up and all the majors. And so as long as you manage it and you don't let yourself get worn out, then you stay focused because you still love to do it. I mean, it's still a game. Even though I do it for a living, it's not like other work. Not to mention the fact that I've got a great bowling ball manufacturer in Storm who supports us in every way, which makes it easier to travel all these tours. So, hey, I'm not going anywhere for very long.
And Norm, you mentioned the PBA 50 Tour. You've been competing against a lot of these guys for many, many years. Walter Ray Williams, Pete, Parker Bone, all these guys. You see each other, you have to have developed, and you probably are friends with a lot of these guys, but then once you go out on the lanes, it's still like game on. I'm still trying to whoop each of these guys' butts. So talk about that balance and how you're able to manage that.
No, I'm sick of them all, I guarantee it. I've seen them for 38 years now. I just seen bowl tournaments without having to look at Walter Ray and Pete Weber and Parker. Amleto, there's others. No, they are. They're great friends, and that's the beauty of it, is that, after the week's over, we go golfing, or we get together and just hang out for a while because there's time in between when you're on a tour, so to speak. So it's kind of like it was in the 80s when we had the same guys out. We're just a lot older, though. But it's fun. They make it fun, and they make it very hard. I mean, when you're bowling against the names that you mentioned, that's not an easy task. It's just not. They're a little older, yeah, but they're still on the kid tour, and they're still winning tournaments on those tours. So, hey, look, as long as we still love it and we keep ourselves in good shape, bowling allows us, to exist longer than most other sports, for sure.
Norm, it does look like you're having a lot of fun out there still bowling and competing on the PBA 50 and PBA Tour. But let's, we do kind of have to face a reality as athletes that our time will come to an end at some point. Has that thought process for you, have you started thinking about that and what that may look like?
Oh, certainly. And the process has already started, Tim. When I finish events on the kid tour, that I played as strongly as I could. I was prepared when I got there. And Jason Belmonte could have spotted me 25 pins a game and still run me over. You have to look at it then. You have to say, no, wait a minute. Am I comfortable making a check with this much work, with this much investment, with this much commitment? Am I comfortable with getting my face beat in? No. My answer is absolutely not no. So I have to come back home and then possibly rededicate myself to other things. You see Walter Ray Williams occasionally go into a two-hand style on both tours, occasionally. He's liable to enjoy some success with that maneuver. He's liable not. But whichever it is, he's recognizing the same thing, is that, well, wait a minute, if you're going to strike with these kids, you've got to be able to get inside of them, and it's hard to get inside of kids that are throwing it with two hands. It's just you can't hook the ball enough to do it. So we have to look at those things. We also have to look at, is my body capable of performing that for a long period of time or weeks or months even? So there's a lot to look at. And to tell you the truth, no, I haven't got a finger on it. I can tell you this, I am still winnable because there are events that we have on the kid tour that are really demanding. And in U.S. Open, our Touring Players Championships, our Tournament of Champions events, those styles of events, that spare game matters. And their strike ball is neutralized to the point where, at that point, we can compete and we can win if we're prepared well enough. And so I'm still at that level right now. I may skip a couple of regular events for a while. Like I don't bowl the what used to be the extra frame event because it just seemed like, the boomers were going to get there every week and there wasn't a lot of money out there in those events. But I could wait on the majors where it's not only lucrative, but it also defines you. And when I finished this bowling career, I want to look back and say, that's a career I'm really proud of. And right now, I'm not finished.
Norman, it always seems like you're working on your game, and there's always some tweaks and little adjustments that you're making. There was a video that came out not too long ago that Ron Hoppy posted where you're up in the Pacific Northwest working with Ron on some things. Do you mind sharing and elaborating what you were working on with Ron and how you're trying to maybe implement that into your game?
Well, yeah, the first question is you never stop investing in your craft. Otherwise, it'll show up in the end. You have to invest in many ways. Right now, I invest a lot more in exercising than I do in practice, where before, when I was a kid, it was exactly the other way around. You had to practice. You had to get good. You had to figure out how to beat people, and you had to even figure out whether or not this is something that you wanted to do long term. So things change in that regard. So the investment in your craft never stops. And in that, I had talked to Ron Hoppy about 8 or 10 years ago about going through my grip. And he said, yeah, I can fix the one thing that bothers you the most, which is after 4 or 5 days in a big event like a U.S. Open or a really hard event where you're shooting a lot of spares and you have a whole lot of games, my thumb would just basically start hurting to the point where I couldn't make the shot that I needed because my thumb was hurting so bad. I needed the best shot of my life because it's the U.S. Open, and you pay for every little mistake. So I decided this was the year that I was going to go and actually do it. So I flew in before the 2 majors on the senior tour, and we spent 4 days together going through my grip. And quite honestly, at this point, I have not changed a thing. I have been working on the things that we put in place. So I've got some thumbs that I can throw in balls and things like that. But with every change, there's an adverse effect, it seems. And I just don't need to lose a component of my game that maybe got me to where I'm at today. Let's say it's a spare game where I need to cut a ball at a 6'10" to eliminate chop. If there's drag on that thumb, I may not be able to do that. The things that we worked on helped me hook a ball more, but didn't seem to help much when I wanted to throw spares and cut balls, and that's the strength of my game, I believe. So I'm still looking at it. I don't make decisions, on the fly. I tend to stew on them a while and make sure that they're ready for action, Tim. So at this point, the jury's still out, but the work got done, and I'm so happy that I went. And by the way, Ron Hoppy's one of the most brilliant people in the industry regarding coaching, grip, drilling, at all.
Speaking of coaching, Norm, you also like to do some coaching when you have some time. You have Next Level Bowling. So let's talk about that and kind of talk about how you're able to give back to the community and give back to bowlers that way.
Well, yeah, I was a kid once, and I had people that treated me really, really wonderfully. And I also had those that didn't. And it seemed like I remember the ones that didn't more than I did the ones that treated me really great as a kid. So I determined a long time ago that I was going to make certain that I look people in their eye. I try to remember their names. And if they need help, absolutely, I'll help out anytime I can. So, I got into business with Bill Hall and Lori Romano a long time ago. And we do clinics, exhibitions, seminars, personal speaking, anything that you need a professional bowler to come and do for you. Next Level Bowling is a one-stop shop for that. And we book anybody. We typically know the regions very well, and we have the contacts, of course. So it's worked out really good for us. And it does give me a chance to coach. And I'll be really honest with you, Tim, because of the two-handed phenomenon that we are enjoying right now, I have had to, and I will continuously have to, invest in that part of my coaching skills. And so I call up Simonson and Jason, and I just say, hey, help me here. I want to help these people. I don't want to tell them anything that it's not going to be beneficial now, but I also need to learn how to break a person's game down, and I don't. So they're helping me with that, but it's the same in that arena. You have to invest in your craft. And so I'm finding, wow, where it used to be one or two-handers in a group of 70 people for the day, now it has become more than 20. So that's something that, I had to look at. It's kind of weird that you say, oh, I want to help. I certainly do, but I don't want to hurt anybody either. And it's easy as a coach to, say one thing or two things wrongly and actually have an adverse effect on your pupil. And I try very hard not to do that.
Quickly, Norm, on two-handed bowlers, I think we always think that two-handed bowlers are going to be those guys that are always with that 600 rev rate, the Jason Belmontes, et cetera, out there. But that's not always the case. So what are you seeing when you're helping some two-handers? And talk about how, yeah, they all kind of look the same, but then there's a little bit of a difference in each of their games. Yeah,
there are people that bowl with two hands that can't rev it at all. They're trying to learn how. They come to us and ask us, how do we get a rev on this? So, yeah, there are two-handers that are in the beginner stages and two-handers that are over 200 average easily, and even more. So, we have to know what we're doing. That's the key. And you say they all look the same. They do, because they're using two hands. But that part kind of steers you away from all the things they do differently. And it's important to know, what is a three-step timing for a two-hander, and how does that compare to, let's say, a Jason Belmonte, who has absolutely impeccable four-step timing. So, yeah, like I say, you got to invest in your craft if you're going to coach. This is where it's going.
Norm, once a year you guys usually get up to Minnesota for a PBA 50 event. When I mention Minnesota and bowling and all that good stuff, what comes to mind? What immediately pops into your head?
I think that I had a really good week the last time I was there, and so I'm going to build off that. It is a great area. You're just way the heck up there. And the people, everywhere you go, people know who you are and what you do, because it's Minnesota. There's so much bowling in that area, and it's refreshing as heck that way, that no matter where you go, you have bowling fans absolutely everywhere. And just about all of them bowl at least once a week. So those are the things that I remember about it. And I do know that I've had success there. So that's always good. But like anything else, you got to go and train. So, I was in the gym this morning, and tomorrow I will start back bowling, and I'll bowl every day until we get started. And otherwise, I tell you, everybody looks at that senior tour and they say, boy, that's a cakewalk. Yeah, it's a cakewalk for whoever wins that week. But everybody else had a dogfight.
Final few questions for you, Norm. So I had EJ Tackett on a FloBowling podcast, and I asked EJ, I said, EJ, amongst your PBA peers, how do you want to be remembered? And he said, I want to be remembered as the greatest ever. And he said, I'm out here chasing Walter Ray Williams in that number of titles, 48. That's where my goal is, to get to 48. So, Norm, when you hear him say that, what do you think? And then ultimately, how do you want your PBA peers to remember you?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate him on an excellent attitude because, hey, look, if he has those goals and barely misses them all, he'll have a hell of a career, won't you say? If he has low goals and he makes every one of them, then he may not be remembered at all in the sport of bowling. So when you say, what do you want to be remembered at? The only way you get remembered is if you have those types of goals. So congratulations, EJ. Great answer. And mine too. I know that Walter Ray is insurmountable to me on the regular tour titles list. They're insurmountable, and for good reason. I mean, he had an exceptionally good career. 6-time Player of the Year. I mean, my goodness. But I was there during all those events. So you might even say it was harder for us because he was in them. People say that about, hey, I had Earl in every event I bowled in. Well, yeah, you'll have somebody. So these people are having Jason Belmonte in all these tournaments. So there will be that person that it's just out of your reach. How do I want to be remembered? You know what? That's not up to me. It really isn't. As a good guy, let's just start there. I want to be remembered as a good guy.
Norm, the final thing I have for you, along with this PBA 50 event you guys have up in Minnesota, there's a Pro-Am event. Those always are very fun to bowl, and you get to bowl with a lot of great bowlers. And just talk about those a little bit, because those have to be even a little bit fun for you guys to do. You get to be a little bit more relaxed and have some fun with some of the spectators. And you guys are all very approachable at those events and sign autographs, sign pins. And they just seem like they're a fun event. So I'd recommend, if you're up in the Minnesota area heading to that tournament, make sure you check out that Pro-Am and sign up for that thing.
Oh, yeah. And, those senior event Pro-Ams, they're well attended. Because if you look at the names and my gosh, you got everybody starting with Johnny Petraglia coming this way. And if you don't, like bowling with Randy Peterson and Amleto and Brian Voss, well, then you're crazy. those guys, I've been bowling with all of them for so many years, and it's the highlight of my day. So if you're around and you want to come and bowl a Pro-Am, or you're on the fence about it, I'm just here to sway you. It's a good time.
All right, Normal, I'm going to let you go, but I appreciate your time again, folks. Check out on FloBowling the PBA 50 River City Extreme Open presented by Ebonite. Starts Tuesday, July 17th. Check it out all on FloBowling.com. And Norm, thanks again for your time. I know you're super busy, and do appreciate you making some time for me.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks very much. Let's do it again.